She snapped. One moment she was smiling politely at a family dinner. The next, she was screaming, crying, saying things she couldn't take back. Later that night, alone in her room, she whispered to herself, "Why do I always lose control? Why can't I just stay calm?" Maybe you've felt that too. You try to be the bigger person. You try to let things go, but then someone pushes that one button and suddenly you're someone else. A version of you that even you don't recognize. We live in a world that runs on reactivity. Social media rewards outrage. Politics thrives on conflict. And everyday life? It constantly throws little sparks, comments, judgments, disappointments, just waiting to set off your emotional wildfire. But what if strength wasn't loud? What if peace wasn't passive? What if the most powerful person is the one who doesn't react at all? In ancient Buddhist teachings, there's a truth that sounds simple, yet it changes everything. You are not punished for your anger. You are punished by your anger. It's not what others say or do that truly hurts you. It's your own reaction, your inner storm that causes the deepest wound. And here's the part most people miss. When you react, you give away your power. But when you pause, observe, and stay rooted, you become unshakable. This isn't about suppressing emotion. It's not about being numb. It's about mastery, emotional freedom, the kind of calm that isn't born from ignoring the world, but from deeply understanding it. Imagine this. You're in a meeting. Someone undermines your idea again. You feel that tightness in your chest, the heat rising in your face. Old you? Snaps, defends, regrets. New you? Breathes, sees clearly, speaks with presence, not from pain. This isn't just emotional intelligence. It's spiritual clarity. And it's something anyone can learn through practice, awareness, and the timeless wisdom of Buddhist teachings. In this video, we'll explore 9 profound Buddhist lessons that will help you transform how you respond to life. Lessons that monks have practiced for centuries, but that you can apply right now in your relationships, your work, and your inner world. These aren't rules, they're revelations. And by the end of this video, you'll not only understand why staying calm is the most radical act of power, you'll actually start to feel it within you. Because here's the truth, most people never hear. Your peace doesn't come from the world calming down. It comes from you waking up. And the first lesson? It's one that will challenge everything you believe about control. Let's begin. Lesson 1. Detachment is the key to inner power. She was the kind of woman who always gave everything. At work, she chased perfection. In love, she clung to the idea of forever. And when life didn't return the favor, she broke. Not all at once, but quietly, like glass under pressure, smiling on the outside, empty on the inside. One night, after another long day, trying to prove her worth to people who barely noticed, she asked the question many of us ask in silence. Why do I feel so exhausted, even when I'm doing everything right? The answer wasn't in doing more. It was in letting go. In Buddhism, this is known as upadana clinging. We cling to praise, to control, to outcomes, to the version of life we think should happen. And this clinging is the root of suffering. But here's the paradox. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means choosing peace over possession. It means loving without needing and acting without attachment to reward. Imagine this. You're standing in the middle of a storm. Winds howling, chaos everywhere. But at the center, you are still. That's what detachment feels like. It's not cold. It's powerful. Because when you no longer depend on the outside world to define your worth, you become unshakable. A promotion doesn't inflate your ego. A rejection doesn't destroy you. Praise becomes a whisper, not your oxygen. Criticism becomes feedback, not your identity. You stop playing tug-of-war with life, and you start dancing with it. This is what the Buddha meant when he said, "In the end, only three things matter: how much you loved, how gently you lived, and how gracefully you let go of things not meant for you." Letting go is an art. It requires mindfulness, courage, and compassion for yourself and others. And no, it doesn't mean being passive. It means acting with intention while staying free from obsession over what comes next. Try this. Next time someone praises you, pause. Feel the warmth, but don't grip it. Next time you fail, pause. Feel the sting, but don't build a home there. Let emotions move through you, like wind through trees, present, but passing. Because when you stop clutching, you start living. And in that space between holding on and letting go, you discover your true power. If this message touched something inside you, pause for a moment, take a breath, and ask yourself, what am I still clinging to? Let that awareness be your first step toward freedom. And if you're ready to walk the path of inner peace together, subscribe, breathe, and let's keep exploring the wisdom that heals. Lesson 2. Compassion creates emotional immunity. Have you ever been hurt by someone's words and carried that pain with you for days, even weeks? Let me tell you a story. There was a woman named Elena. She worked in a high-stress hospital, giving her all to care for patients. But there was one colleague who constantly criticized her sharp comments, cold stares, passive-aggressive notes on her reports. At first, Elena reacted like many of us would: anger, self-doubt, frustration. She replayed those words at night, wondering if something was wrong with her. But one evening, after a particularly harsh encounter, she sat alone, closed her eyes, and tried something new. She imagined that colleague as a human being in pain. She saw a man who had likely suffered long before he ever met her. Maybe he felt invisible at home. Maybe no one had ever shown him kindness. Maybe his harshness wasn't about her at all. And in that moment, something shifted. Elena didn't excuse his behavior, but her heart softened. The tightness in her chest eased. She stopped taking it personally. That is compassion. And compassion, when practiced deeply, becomes a kind of emotional immunity. Not a wall that shuts people out, but a clear lens that lets us see their suffering without absorbing it. You see, when we meet cruelty with defensiveness, we're caught in a loop pane bouncing back and forth like a tennis match. No one wins. But when we meet it with compassion, we break the loop. It's not weakness, it's clarity. The Buddha taught that anger arises from misunderstanding, and compassion, true, grounded compassion, is a medicine for both the one who gives it and the one who receives it. It's the ability to look at someone who's hurting you and think, you must be in a lot of pain to act this way. And while I won't let you harm me, I will not add more hatred to this world. That thought alone can change everything. Compassion doesn't mean being passive. It means seeing clearly without being swept away. It's what allows you to walk into conflict without losing your center, to speak truth without cruelty, to feel others' pain without drowning in it. In the world we live in, overflowing with reactivity, blame, and emotional burnout, compassion is not just a spiritual idea. It's a survival skill. It gives you strength not just to endure, but to transform. So the next time someone lashes out, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, what pain might this person be carrying? You don't need to fix them. You just need not to absorb them. Because that is how you reclaim your peace. And in doing so, you become a source of healing in a hurting world. If this message resonates with your heart, take a moment to sit in silence today and offer compassion first to yourself, then to someone who may need it most. Compassion is not a reaction, it's a choice. If you felt a shift just now, consider subscribing. We explore deep Buddhist wisdom for everyday healing because the world doesn't need more noise, it needs more peace. Lesson 3. Know the self beyond the ego. Let me ask you something personal. Have you ever had an argument where after it ended you kept replaying what you should have said? Maybe someone questioned your ability, dismissed your idea, or looked at you in a way that made you feel small. And even long after the moment passed, your chest still burned. Your mind kept fighting battles that were already over. That's the ego. There was a man named Marcus. He was a brilliant designer, creative, kind, respected by many. But one comment from his boss, just one, "This isn't your best work," was enough to ruin his entire week. He obsessed over it, took it personally, questioned his worth. Why? Because deep down, Marcus wasn't just hearing feedback. His ego heard rejection. And that's what many of us live with. The fragile ego that says, "I must be right. I must be seen. I must win. I must be loved." But here's the truth. You are not your ego. That voice inside the one that craves recognition, fears, judgment, and constantly compares is not the real you. It's just a mask. A temporary identity built from old stories, fears, and conditioning. Buddhism teaches that your true nature is far beyond that. It's not the emotion you feel. It's not the thought you think. It's the silent awareness watching it all unfold. Let that sink in. You are the space, not the storm. And the moment you realize, I am not this anger, I am not this fear, I am not this hurt ego, something amazing happens. You stop being controlled by it. That's not just philosophy. It's freedom. Imagine how your life would change if you no longer needed to prove yourself in every conversation. If someone's criticism didn't feel like an attack on your identity. If you could observe pain, not become it. This shift doesn't happen overnight. But every time you pause, take a breath, and say, "That's my ego reacting, not my true self," you take one step closer to peace. It's like peeling back layers of noise until what remains is unshakable presence. That's the beginning of true power, because the ego is reactive, but the self, the real self, is still wise, steady. It doesn't need to win to feel whole. It doesn't need to be seen to know its worth. It simply is. So next time someone triggers you, ask yourself, is this my truth? Or just my ego trying to protect itself? That question alone can dissolve years of suffering. Remember, you are not the story you've told yourself. You are the one listening to the story. If this message spoke to you, take a moment today, just one moment, to sit in silence and watch your thoughts rise and fall without chasing them. You are not the waves. You are the ocean. Subscribe if you're walking the path back to your true self. We're building a space for healing, presence, and Buddhist wisdom, one breath at a time. Lesson 4. Observe, don't absorb. How to protect your inner peace. There's a woman I once met at a meditation retreat. Her name was Eliza. Eliza worked in emergency health care. Every single day she witnessed pain, loss, and desperation. She told me, "I used to come home every night completely drained. I'd carry everyone's suffering on my shoulders, like it was mine to fix." Maybe you felt like Eliza, like the negativity of others is something you have to carry, or worse, become. You walk into a room full of tension, and suddenly, your chest tightens. Someone lashes out in anger, and you take it personally, even if it wasn't about you. You scroll through the chaos online and feel your joy quietly fading. We're not taught this in school, but we should be. You are not responsible for absorbing the energy of others. You are not the storm they are. And you don't have to drown just because it's raining. In Buddhism, there is a powerful practice called vipassana, a deep, silent meditation. It teaches us to sit with what is, not run away, not resist. Just observe. Imagine a still lake. Now imagine someone throwing a stone into it. Ripples form, yes, but given time, the surface settles again. That is your mind when trained to observe rather than absorb. When a negative emotion arises, anger, fear, anxiety, it's just a ripple. You don't need to become the water. You are the sky above it, endlessly spacious and untouched. This isn't about ignoring problems or pretending to be Zen while you silently scream inside. It's about choosing what energy is truly yours. Let's take an example. Someone criticizes you unfairly. You feel the heat rise in your chest. But instead of reacting, you pause. You take one breath. And you say to yourself, "This is their storm, not mine." That space between the trigger and the response is where peace lives. And when you choose to stay in that space, over and over again, you begin to reclaim your power. You stop being a sponge for the world's pain, and instead, become a mirror. You reflect calm. You reflect wisdom. You reflect stillness. This is a profound shift, and it doesn't require years in a monastery. It just requires the willingness to notice rather than react, to be the observer, not the absorber, to hold your center like a mountain, unmoved by passing winds. It may feel hard at first, especially if you're someone who deeply feels for others. But here's the thing. The world doesn't need more people overwhelmed by pain. It needs people who can feel without drowning, who can witness without collapsing, who can love without losing themselves. So the next time life gets loud, emotions get heavy, and others try to hand you their chaos, ask yourself, do I want to carry this, or can I just observe it? Because peace isn't the absence of noise, it's your ability to remain still within it. And that power is already within you. Lesson 5. The power is always in the pause, where peace begins. There's a moment so small, so fleeting you could miss it. It happens right after someone says something hurtful, right before you yell back, or shut down, or spiral into that old familiar story. They never respect me. I'm not enough. It's always like this. That moment, right there, is the pause. Most people never notice it. They skip right over it, like a rock skimming the surface of a lake, reacting, defending, attacking. But those who do notice it, they've tapped into one of the greatest powers in human experience. The power to choose. You see, between every trigger and every reaction, there is a space. It might only last half a second. But in that space, you have a choice. To repeat the past, or to create something new. This is something Buddhism and mindfulness have always known. And science now confirms it. When you pause, you engage a different part of the brain, one that's responsible for self-awareness and emotional regulation. You become less like a wildfire and more like a candle in the dark. Let's say someone cuts you off in traffic. Your body floods with adrenaline. You grip the wheel tighter. You want to shout, maybe curse. That's your automatic response, wired from years of habit. But then you pause. You take a single conscious breath, and something shifts. You realize you're not in danger. You're not being disrespected. This moment doesn't need to steal your peace. That pause becomes your power. It's not passive. It's not weakness. It's a radical act of reclaiming your energy. And with practice, that pause grows longer. It goes from one breath to two, from one heartbeat to clarity. Meditation is the training ground for this. Every time you sit and your mind wanders and you gently bring it back, you're strengthening your pause muscle. You're teaching your nervous system. I don't have to react. I can just notice. I don't have to fight this feeling. I can breathe with it. I am not my impulses. I am the awareness behind them. Over time, you begin to respond differently. Instead of shouting, you speak with calm. Instead of shutting down, you stay open. Instead of repeating old cycles, you rewrite them. And here's the most beautiful part. That pause doesn't just change your reaction. It changes your entire life. Because when you stop living on autopilot, you start living awake. And in that awakened space, even the smallest decisions become sacred. So the next time something triggers you, pause. Even just one breath. That's where your healing begins. That's where your karma shifts. That's where you return to yourself. Lesson 6. Let the fire burn out on its own. The freedom of not reacting. Imagine this. Someone shouts at you, accuses you, belittles you. It feels like they've just handed you a torch burning hot, flickering with their anger, their pain, their chaos. Now you have a choice. You can grab it, hold it tight, and let the flames scorch your peace. Or you can simply not take it. You let it drop, and the fire, with no fuel, dies on its own. This is not weakness. This is mastery. Because silence, not the silence of suppression, but the silence of clarity, is a rare and powerful force. It says, I see your fire, but I won't feed it. I feel the heat, but I choose not to burn. The Buddha taught that we suffer not because others throw flames at us, but because we catch them, cradle them, and carry them long after the moment has passed. But you are not obligated to carry someone else's fire. Every time you choose not to react when someone insults you, when life feels unfair, when your ego wants to strike back, you're rewiring your mind for peace. It doesn't mean you don't feel. It doesn't mean you suppress your truth. It means you've learned the rare art of discernment. You know that some battles aren't worth fighting because the cost is your own inner stillness. Think of a wise monk sitting by a river. Children might throw pebbles into the water, shouting, laughing, but the monk doesn't chase after the ripples. He watches, breathes, smiles, because he knows the water always returns to calm. Let your mind be that river. When someone tries to drag you into chaos, observe instead of absorbing. Breathe instead of biting back. This is the training of true power, not to dominate others, but to master your own response. And something beautiful happens when you do. The people who once tried to provoke you stop, not because they've changed, but because you've changed the rules of engagement. They can no longer light a fire in someone who carries no dry wood. So the next time someone offers you a torch of anger, blame, or bitterness, don't reach for it. Don't respond. Just pause and let it burn out on its own. Because your peace is too precious to trade for temporary validation. Because real freedom isn't in controlling the world. It's in not letting the world control you. Lesson 7. Silence is the language of the wise. The power of unspoken wisdom. There's a kind of silence that's louder than thunder. Not the silence of awkwardness, not the silence of fear, but the silence of a calm, awakened mind that knows. You see, wise people don't need to shout. They don't need to win arguments. They don't need to prove they're right. Because wisdom doesn't rise from noise, it blooms in stillness. When someone attacks you with words, sharp, bitter, loud, you're given two doors. One leads to reaction. You defend, you explain, you match fire with fire, and soon you've forgotten your center. The other door is silence. Not avoidance, not weakness, but a silence filled with clarity, a silence that sees everything. And when you choose it, something powerful happens. The other person expects resistance. They expect a fight. They expect their words to land like arrows. But when you say nothing, the arrow has nowhere to land. You've stepped out of the game. And that's what confuses them. Your silence breaks the pattern. It disrupts their control. It protects your energy. In a world addicted to noise, silence is rebellion. It's medicine. It's mastery. Because it takes great strength to not respond when your ego is provoked, to not explain yourself just to be understood. But that's when your inner voice grows louder. It whispers. You don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to water weeds with your words. And when you do speak, it's not from the rawness of emotion. It's from awareness. Clear, measured, necessary. That's the difference between reaction and response. One is impulsive. The other is intentional. Silence teaches you to pause, to observe, to act only when the moment calls for it, not when your ego demands it. Think of the great teachers, sages, monks. They rarely waste words, because they've realized that the deepest truths aren't shouted, they're felt. So, next time you're drawn into conflict, pause, breathe. Let your silence speak for you. Because silence isn't the absence of power. It's the presence of something far greater, self-mastery. And in that sacred space, where no words are spoken, your wisdom echoes the loudest. Lesson 8. Acceptance ends all suffering. The quiet power of letting things be. There was a time when Emily couldn't sleep at night. Not because of noise, not because of stress at work, but because deep down, she kept replaying the same thought over and over. Why did it have to happen this way? Her relationship had ended, not with a fight, not with closure, just silence. And in that silence, her mind screamed, "It shouldn't be like this." That phrase, "it shouldn't be like this," is the birthplace of suffering. Not the event itself, not the breakup, not the person who left. Suffering begins when we resist what is. When our mind argues with reality, we ignite a war inside ourselves. But what if I told you that the path out of suffering is not through fighting, fixing, or forcing, but through acceptance? Now, I know that word acceptance often feels like surrender, like giving up, like weakness. But in Buddhist wisdom, acceptance is not defeat. It's clarity. It's freedom. It's the first breath after drowning in shoulds. When you accept something, you're not saying it's ideal. You're simply saying, this is what's happening right now. From that place of presence, you begin to see options. You act not from pain, but from wisdom. You speak not to react, but to respond with grace. Take this. A storm arrives. You can scream at the clouds, or you can shelter in place. Screaming doesn't stop the rain. Acceptance does. In real life, acceptance can be as simple and as hard as sitting with your own grief without trying to push it away. It can be choosing to breathe deeply when someone triggers you, instead of firing back. It can be saying, "This hurts, but I will face it." When you stop resisting, your energy comes back. You stop leaking it into stories that don't serve you. And slowly, your inner power returns, not the loud, fiery kind, but the quiet, steady flame of presence. Here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to control everything is the moment you start feeling truly in control. That's what happened to Emily. She didn't force herself to move on. She didn't pretend everything was okay. She sat with the truth. She cried. She meditated. She whispered, "I don't understand this, but I accept it." And over time, the pain softened. Her heart didn't close. It opened. She found peace, not because life was perfect, but because she stopped needing it to be. Pause here and ask yourself, what are you still fighting that you could simply accept? Not forever, not blindly, but just for this moment. Could you let go? Let that be your quiet revolution. If this message touched something inside you, take a moment to breathe, to reflect, and maybe even to forgive. Leave a comment below. Today, I choose acceptance. It might be the beginning of your healing. Lesson 9. The compound effect of focused energy. She used to think she was broken. For years, Mia would wake up feeling anxious, scattered, overwhelmed. She'd try a new habit, meditation, journaling, cold showers, then quit a week later, telling herself, maybe I'm just not wired for peace. Until one day, her grandmother, a soft-spoken woman who had lived through war and loss, handed her a small clay cup. It was cracked, but not broken. And her grandmother whispered, "It's not about fixing. It's about polishing every day, just a little." That moment changed everything. You see, transformation isn't a grand event. It's not about that one silent retreat in the mountains, or the single night you cried under the stars and promised to change. Real peace is boring, unseen, unsexy. It's saying no to distraction 1,000 times. It's choosing presence over reactivity when no one's watching. It's the quiet decision to return to your breath again and again and again. In Buddhism, there's a word, bhavana. It means mental cultivation, not a one-time miracle, but the patient art of shaping your inner world, like water carving stone, drop by drop. Think about that. Water, so soft, yet over time, it wears down mountains. So too does your attention shape the landscape of your mind. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you choose silence over sarcasm, every time you observe a thought without letting it pull you under, you're training your nervous system. You're rewiring your response to life. You're polishing the cup. It's not glamorous, but it's sacred. Because the compound effect of focused energy is this. What starts as tiny choices becomes who you are. You don't achieve peace. You become peaceful. Not through force, but through the gentle repetition of conscious living. And the best part? You don't have to be perfect. You just have to show up, like a monk sweeping the temple floor, one breath at a time. So, if today your mind feels chaotic, if you slip back into old habits, if you forgot to be mindful, that's okay. Return, and return again. The real path isn't paved in motivation, but in devotion. Conclusion. Mastering yourself is the real power. There's something profoundly liberating when you realize this one truth. You don't need to control the world. You only need to master yourself. Most of us spend years trying to fix people, change situations, control outcomes. But the more we chase control, the more exhausted we become. Because the world isn't here to bend to our will, it's here to awaken us. True strength is quiet. It's not loud or forceful. It doesn't come from winning arguments or controlling others. It comes from knowing when to let go, when to pause, when to stay silent, and most of all, when not to react. Imagine this. Someone insults you. In the past, you might have snapped back, defended yourself, or carried that resentment for days. But now, you breathe, you watch, you don't react, you choose stillness. In that moment, you're not weak. You're powerful because you refuse to be pulled into someone else's storm. Buddhist wisdom reminds us, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose. That space is sacred. It's where you return to yourself, where pain doesn't get to define your next step, where no one's opinion has the power to disturb your inner peace. And it's not something you get overnight. It comes from practice daily, gentle practice, from letting go of what you can't change, from observing your thoughts without attaching to them, from choosing silence when your ego wants to scream, from accepting what is without resistance, From training your attention, moment by moment, like a mountain unmoved by the wind, you become steady, centered, untouchable not because you've built walls, but because you've built presence. And here's the truth, no one tells you. When you stop trying to control the world can no longer control you. Have you ever met someone who radiates calm no matter what chaos surrounds them?